Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and were you able to guess what that sound was? That was the sound of coffee beans getting poured into my grinder. And why the different sound effect this time? Well, I'm so excited to introduce the Pour Yourself a Latte stamp set that just released with Cat Scrappiness. And the reason why this is such a special release to me is because I got to help design it. So I'm really, really excited to finally be able to share this stamp set with you. I am not an illustrator or artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I did provide the concept art for these coffee elements, and Kat's amazing illustrators brought this to life and put their magical touch on it and created this amazing 6x8 stamp set. There are a lot of different elements to the stamp set, but you will notice there aren't any sentiments. I am sure if you are a coffee fanatic like I am, that you're going to have some sentiments that you can use with this set. And the trade-off was to be able to include more latte art designs and have more different options that you can use to create your cup of coffee. So what's fabulous is that the size of this is pretty good. It's about 3 inches wide by 2 1/4 tall. So this can be a really nice focal image, and there's lots of different options for how to put this all together because there is also a coordinating die set that you can get along with this set. Now, for folks who don't already know, I, in a former life, owned and operated my own coffee shop with my brother. And it was ages and ages ago, but as part of a coffee shop owner, of course, you have to learn the industry. I was already a coffee fanatic well before, but the ins and outs of the business and what we wanted to do was elevate our coffee, our espresso-based drinks, and in particular our lattes, to have latte art. And so not only did my brother and I learn how to pour latte art, but we also taught our baristas, and it was really sweet. I look back on those times with a lot of fond memories because a lot of times our baristas would bring in a gallon of milk and just practice. When the shop was slow, they would just make themselves a latte. And a lot of times I would be in the back doing stuff, and one of our baristas would peek their head behind and say, "Hey, Lynn, do you want a latte?" More so that they could get the practice. But they were super excited. And as all of that practice was starting to pay off, they were really pleased with being able to pour latte art for our customers, who were always so impressed and thrilled with having just that little bit of art in their cup. So really, really fun. And to this day, every morning I make myself a latte and I pour myself a latte art. And now with the Pour Yourself a Latte stamp set, you can pour yourself a cup of a latte and make your own latte art as well. So this stamp set does feature 4 different latte art designs. And as well, there are 2 different black coffees, and I'll go into those a little bit. There are some floral elements that will allow you to decorate your cup, and I do love that they are separate so that you get multiple different options, and that you can have the plain coffee cup as well because it is a really nice size. You can fit quite a few different sentiments in there. And then the final stamp set is that bit of steam, which is wonderful as well. And so there's lots of different ways that you can kind of configure your own cup of coffee, from completely empty to near empty to just a black cup of joe to 4 different latte art designs. And I'll actually tell you a little bit more about each of these designs too, because they are the 4 designs that I actually know how to pour. I'm not competition level or anything like that. So don't get me wrong. I'm not an expert. And I'm still practicing the swan, which I'll show you a close up of. But these are the four that I am aspiring to, and the ones that I pour often. Then we have the plain black, and so I've got the two there. And those are nice because I definitely wanted that near empty black coffee, because I'm sure if you're a coffee fan like I am, you've got the perfect stamp you're already thinking about. That's sort of along the lines of what happens when you run out of coffee. So I love that. I knew I wanted to have that for sure because I think there's lots of really fun sentiments that can go along with that. And then there's your four different latte art designs, and these are some of these I feel are ones that you're probably very familiar with seeing, but I think what makes this stamp set unique, at least to what I'm familiar with, is the swan latte art, because you don't see that too often. And all of them will fit into this mug, which is wonderful. And you could decorate it, as I mentioned, with these two floral kind of flourishes. But those actually work really well on their own too. I mean, they'll fit into this space here, but they're gonna work great if as just decorative elements on a panel too. But the space is empty for a reason, mostly because I was thinking that's plenty of space to fit in sentiments too. So, and then there's a bit of steam as well. And as I mentioned, there are coordinating dies for every single stamped image. And even though the latte art ones are the same because they fill the same space, you do get them as individual dies. These two, you have, do note that the black coffee, it is slightly different shape to the latte art designs. So if you look at it closely, it's a little bit, it's actually filled kind of below the rim, whereas latte art is like all the way to the top. And that's pretty standard of how latte art is poured in real life. It is all the way to the top. And stay tuned to the end. I'll show you a video of me making my morning latte. So if you stick to the very end, you'll get to see me pour myself a latte. So you have all of the dies, and one thing I do want to note is that the outline die for the mug. So this one, as you're seeing it here, that's the correct one. And if you're getting the first production run of the dies, you're going to actually get two outline dies because there was an incorrect die in the first pass that they made. And Kat noticed it. She had it corrected. She's got great attention to detail. So what you'll find in the first production run is you're going to get the correct die, but it's going to be in a separate cello bag. And it'll just be included in the package. So you'll see it. Just look for it maybe behind the die set. And the difference is that there's the little area in between the handle where you put your finger through to hold your mug. That was not cut out originally in the original outline die. But as I mentioned, if you're getting the first production run of these dies, you're going to have both. So it's kind of nice. You get both options. Okay, so now let me show you the different latte art designs. So this one's the heart shape, and it's actually the easiest one to pour. And in that upper left-hand corner, you'll see some examples of the morning lattes that I share out to my Instagram profile. I actually have 2 pinned storyboards of my latte art. So if you want to see my actual morning lattes, you can find them all on my Instagram. This one is the tulip. It's actually one of the harder ones to pour because you start and stop. So you can see those gaps in between the white of the milk. That's each time stopping and starting the pour. Then we have the swan. You can see my example. I haven't perfected it. I am getting close. don't always practice the swan every morning. I think I just need to consistently practice it every morning until I've got it nailed. At some point, you kind of develop some muscle memory pouring latte art, and it gets easier and easier. But you can see some of my practice attempts. They're not all great. Then this one here is the Rosetta. It's also called a leaf, and it's probably the next hardest after the heart. So I would say the heart, the Rosetta leaf, the tulip, and then the swan would be the order of difficulty. So kind of in that order. And this is it's just a lot of fun. It's a passion of mine, and I've gotten all the way to the point where I roast some of my own coffee beans at home. So it's really fun to be able to have this stamp set now that's been in my brain for a long, long time coming. And so big thanks to Kat for bringing it to life. I did want to call out, this is the difference between that incorrect die that doesn't cut out the inside of the handle. You see how there's still white there? That right there. So sometimes you actually might want to leave that, but the correct die has the opening cut out. And if you're, as I mentioned, getting this during the first production run of these dies, you'll have both. So a little bit of a bonus, you can use either or. And one of the coffee stamps that isn't shown is the near empty. So I'll actually, with this, oh, that reminds me. So I'll show you samples of my cards at the towards the end as well, and I'll point out why sometimes it might be nice to see that the inside of the handle in white. But before I get that, let me also demonstrate how you can do what I've done here on these samples that I've shown, where I've basically stamped everything out on the same layer and then die cut everything just with the outline die. Because everything does have, all of the images do have their own coordinating die, the other option, instead of stamping it all together and then die cutting it in one, the other option is to layer it up too. But here you can see the two examples with the decorative designs, and everything is flat. Everything is just stamped onto a single layer, and you can see there's no dimension. If you wanted, like I said, you could stamp them all out separately, die cut them all out separately, and then layer them up if you're looking for a more layered look. Or if you just don't want to do like the multiple stage stamping, because that's always an option too. So I'm gonna set these aside, and I will show you a couple different ways. And if you know a better way that works better and more consistently for you, then definitely do what works for you. But if you are not super familiar with stamp sets like these, then let me show you a couple different ways that you can position the contents of the coffee mug, and the design. So it kind of boils down to just the coffee first, or the coffee mug first and then the coffee. So do you want to do the mug first and then put the coffee inside the mug? Or do you want to stamp the inside first and then stamp the outline over it? There's no right or wrong, and I'll start with the mug, and then I'm gonna stamp that partial coffee. I'm using the Crafter's Companion stamping mat. It's a nice cushy mat, so it helps you to get a better stamped impression because it has some give. This is their rocker block. It has a curved edge, and it's raised on both sides so that it's lifted a little bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rest it kind of on that bottom edge that's closest to me, and then I will try to line it up with the inside of the coffee mug. And it's one of those things where it might be really helpful to really get your head and your eyes like right over top. But I don't want to get into the view of the camera, so I'm gonna try not to do that. But just gonna rest it on the bottom edge just to have something to stabilize the acrylic block as I line it up, so that I'm not just holding it in midair. And then when it looks good, I just roll it. So the rocker block is great. It's not an up or down. And that's what helps you to really get things positioned without wiggling, because you're bracing it a little bit and stabilizing the rocker block a little bit, and then just rolling that stamped image over. So that's one option, and that was totally freehand, and I lined it up. I think pretty well, considering I didn't get my head like right over top like I would normally. So that's one way of doing it. You can, and of course, just use what you have. If you don't have a rocker block, you can use an acrylic block too. But I find that the stamping mat definitely does help, just because instead of stamping it onto a hard surface, you're stamping it with something that has a bit of give, so it tends to give you a really nice impression, even just freehand. So here I've got an acetate, just plain old acetate, nothing special, nothing like construction weight. It's kind of my flimsy acetate, and I've stamped with StazOn my outline of the mug. And I keep this, I leave it in the packaging, that way I can use it over and over again. And so see how here you can just move it around and get that to line up just right, and position it, exactly so where you can see, because the coffee itself we stamped out first. And then now I'm going to use this little kind of template to help line up that outline die. And it helps me to really just visualize, how the final thing's going to look. And then all I need to do, you can see how well loved this is. All I need to do is just line up my stamp with the acetate, the stamped image that's on the acetate. And that acetate's going to protect the surface of my project. So even if this stamp, it does look dirty, but it's been wiped down, it's been cleaned. But even if you had a little bit of ink, don't worry, because the acetate's there to protect the surface of your project. What you want to do is, this might be a little bit hard to visualize, especially since my stamp is so dirty. But I'll zoom you in here, and the idea is that, see how you can kind of still see maybe it's a little bit hard to see, but you can still see the stamped lines on the acetate. You want to nudge your actual stamp, your physical stamp, around so that you don't see that line anymore. It should basically kind of fill in that area where you won't be able to see the line. Because if you can see the line, then you know that your stamp isn't completely lined up with your acetate template. So again, this is one of those things where it's helpful to really get your head right over top so that you can, instead of looking at it at an angle, you can look at it straight on, and that helps to sometimes position it a little bit better. And I like to push it in both directions. Push it to where you can see the line coming out the other end, and then nudge it back a little bit. So sometimes that might help too. Once that's in place, you can close the door to your stamp positioning tool to pick up the stamp, and then ink it up. I'm going to ink it up with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is my favorite stamping ink. And then I can just stamp it. So you can see this is another approach. And then once you've made that one acetate sheet, and again, for the acetate sheet, I use StazOn ink because that ink is designed so that you can actually stamp onto a non-porous surface like acetate. And there you have it. I have two different ways to fill your coffee mug. You can just freehand stamp it if you want, or you can use a template and try to be like really precise about it. The designs, the coffee mug designs are really easy. There's a lot more play. There's a lot more, wiggle room for how to line these images up. So with these, I I don't think that it's quite as challenging, because with the coffee, it definitely looks a little bit more realistic, I guess, if it's actually positioned to look like it's inside the mug. With this, these designs, they've been illustrated so that you have a little bit of wiggle room, and you don't have to get them really, really spot on in any one particular location. And the acetate I just keep. I just put that right inside the packaging so I can use it over and over again. If you want it to be precise, you could definitely add this as part of your stays on or your acetate template as well. But I'm okay with just kind of eyeballing it. But that's the other way. If you have a stamp positioning tool, you can just line your stamp up on your project to where it looks like it might be it looks about right to you, and then just stamp it. So that is a couple different ways that you can use to stamp out your coffee designs into the mug. And the die is also pretty easy to line up. Now the die will cut so that there is a little bit of a white border all the way around the outside of the drawn lines. And I'm just gonna trim this down a little bit because I've been trying to use my mini Empress as my main die cutting machine. That's the small little electric cutting machine I have, and the opening is only about 4 1/4 wide. So I'm gonna trim this down so I know it can fit through that. To line up the die with any of the stamps, it's really easy. What you're looking for is when you look inside the metal, basically all you want to see is just the black lines of the stamped image. You don't want to see any white that's on the outside of the stamped image. And that, like that, you see at the bottom there was a little bit of white. Just nudge everything around, turn it a little bit if you need to only see, and maybe it helps to look at the back of the die. So if you're looking at the cutting edge, that raised edge is where the die will cut. And if you look, the metal on the inside of that, it doesn't stretch too far out. That's as much of a border as there is. So basically, on the edge of your metal die is where you want to line up the outline of the stamped image. And so it's just that little thin white border that you're going to end up seeing when you get this die cut. So again, it might help to kind of get your head like hover right over top of this just so that you can get a nice, because sometimes when you look at things at an angle, you might not see that there's a little bit of, a white gap, especially on the edge that's nearest to you. So that's why it can kind of help to be looking at it from straight up above. And once you have it in place, you can just tape it down. By the way, I've been using this Scotch removable tape that I think Cindy was the one who clued me into this, and it's fabulous. It works really great. It doesn't tear your cardstock at all. And it's just tacky enough to hold everything down and secure in place when you run it through your die cutting machine. And it's way more affordable than like the mint tape or the Spellbinders yellow tape. So A+ for that so far. Thank you, Cindy, for recommending it to me. So then here's the die cut all cut out, and I'm gonna go ahead and die cut the next one too. But you can see that lovely, just very thin white border, and see how the inside of the handle was cut out. So that's kind of nice. It's such great attention to detail. I love that Kat caught that, and I actually really like that we have both the incorrect one and the correct one. I'll show you some card samples in a bit, because I feel like there were some times on some of my cards it actually might have been nice to just leave the inside of the handle white, or I should say just not cut it out. So that it's nice to kind of have that option. And like I said, if you're getting this first production run, then you're gonna get the mistake die, but you're also gonna get the correct die, and that way you can kind of choose. A little bit of a bonus. So here's that second one cut out, but I did use the correct die on this one too. But there it is. So a couple different options for, how to line up your stamps and how to line up the die. But then I should also mention that the cards that I'll show in a moment are the ones that I made for a cross-company collaboration hop between Cat Scrappiness and the Not Too Shabby shop. So from the Cat Scrappiness side, we have several design team members, and we are celebrating the Pour Yourself a Latte stamp and die set. And from the Not Too Shabby shop side, designers on that team contributed to making projects with both releases. So the Pour Yourself a Latte release, as well as the coffee art bundle that the Not Too Shabby shop released, which was 2 paper pads and a pack of ephemera that coordinates, as well as a sheet of glitter enamel dots. And so one of my cards, I actually used my mini one sheet wonder number 8. So it's like all the things that I love. And I made 2 sets. So with mini one sheet wonder number 8, you can take one 6x6 sheet of pattern paper and create 3 different card sketches. So what I did was created 3 in the one colorway with the Not Too Shabby shop new release, and 3 in a different colorway featuring Cat Scrappiness papers. And I love the coffee because adulting is hard sentiment. That's from the Perk Up sentiments. I think there's some images too, but that's from Perk Up stamp by Cat Scrappiness. So you can see here on this one, I think it would have been nice to just leave the inside of the mug attached, because the background is a little bit busy. So just so that you can block out more of the background, maybe it would have been nice to just leave that. And all I did with that mug is I just inked around the edges with some ink to kind of distress it, stain it a little bit. But that's an occasion where maybe you want to keep, maybe you want to use the incorrect outline die. But here's sketch number 2, and there's that lovely swan that I am still aspiring to perfect. The Got Coffee sentiment is from Cat Scrappiness, and this card here just features the ephemera, which also features some latte art. It was really exciting because Jamie and Teresa, they are so sweet. They actually designed that bundle to kind of coincide theme-wise with the whole latte art stamp set. So huge thanks to Jamie and everybody on the Not Too Shabby shop design team for participating in the collaboration hop. I'm so excited to see what they created, because at the time I'm recording this, I haven't actually seen what they made. So I'm excited to see for myself what they did with my stamp set, and I'm super jazzed. So if you want to see what they made as well, do hop along, and I'll link to that playlist at the end of this one. So if you're excited and you're interested to see more and find out more about the stamp set, I'll leave a link to the Pour Yourself a Latte 6x8 stamp set, and as well the coordinating die. And if you do, thank you so much. I do get a little bit of a commission anytime you use any of my affiliate links, and thank you in advance for that, by the way. It's always such a welcomed surprise when I'm able to collect a commission check. So, because you do have to kind of meet a minimum threshold before you get like a check. So it's always nice when that happens. So thank you so much. I do have a dream to make my crafting a hobby, not just a hobby, I should say, but an to actually earn from it. So it is something that is a passion of mine, that this is just another one of those kind of bucket list kind of things where now I can say that I have my very own stamp set inspired by some concept art that I created and based off of real life latte art that I've poured. So here is a look at my morning routine as I pour myself a latte each morning. Thanks for joining me on this one, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.